fairly disturbing story. 15 rescue workers in the Rafah area, southern Gaza, were killed by an IDF ambush. The 15 people who died were buried by the IDF in a shallow ditch. If it's the soldiers who actually lied about the lights, that just sounds like they just committed a massacre. Like they just murdered aid workers for no reason. Okay. So, incident, we spoke about this on stream. The video got released very shortly after the stream ended, so we have more updates, although it seems to confirm what we thought. Even before this video, it looked pretty clear that this was a massacre. But 15 rescue workers in the Rafah area, southern Gaza, were killed by an IDF ambush. The initial story was that the IDF had identified a convoy that was, quote, moving suspiciously with their lights off. That was the first claim that was given. It seems to be that that claim was given from the soldiers and passed on to their superiors, and that's what the superiors reported. Very shortly after that claim came out, a medic who was a survivor of this attack claimed that the lights were on, that they were unarmed, and that as soon as they got out, they were just fired upon for about 5 minutes. There were also stories about him being like brutally interrogated, beaten. Maybe some people were tied up, although I don't think we've seen visual evidence of that. In any case, the 15 people who died were buried by the IDF in a shallow ditch and covered with sand, which I didn't actually know. But that's actually, it's as disturbing as it sounds. Apparently, that's IDF protocol. The reason that they do that, according to them, is that there's a whole issue now of loads of stray dogs running around Gaza. You can guess why. And apparently, there's a risk of those stray dogs like eating the corpses. So in order to preserve the corpses, they cover them with a thin layer of sand, put them into a ditch, and then gave the coordinates to the UN. And then that's how the UN went and found them and to bury them, to dig them out and identify them. So yeah, but fairly disturbing story. Do we believe them? What, that it's protocol to do that? I mean, it seems like it would make sense that it would be their protocol, because if they wanted to hide the bodies, why would they tell the UN where they are? I don't know. It seems like they were okay with the UN finding the bodies, but the problem is that, first of all, the IDF said that 9 people who died were Hamas militants. They have since revised that number down to 6, and there's a huge discrepancy here. The biggest one so far being that the aid workers, apparently, they claimed their lights were on and that they were just driving normally towards somewhere that they'd got a warning that people had died or were injured. But a video surfaced after the IDF made that claim, showing the lights are clearly on and they are just driving quite normally down the road. So there's the vehicles, 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, we only really have IDF information mostly on what this van is, or at least their story. So this is very not safe for work even to listen. This is New York Times. This is the shortened version. But yes, these are the 2 vehicles, the 3 vehicles and then the one behind them. Reflective gear, so it's very clearly identifiable. It's dark as well, so... Yeah. They're talking about people who are lying around, scattered everywhere. I think the IDF posted another response saying the previous claim was based on soldier testimonies. Yeah, so what would have happened is a soldier would have lied to the IDF spokespersons or their superiors, and then they would have, that's the message they got into the media. So yeah, it seems that the people who actually did this massacre were the ones who lied to the IDF, and then the IDF passed that lie on without checking it to the public. So this van, we'll talk about this one in a minute. And there are shots, and then the guy starts praying, and there's gunshots. There's a full video that lasts about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. Okay, but it's 5 more minutes of just that. The gunshots last for a really long time. So he's saying the Shahada, yes. Okay, so the story about this van, I think, is maybe still mixed, but let me find it. It's the closest you can get to it. The story about this van is that the IDF so far have released a preliminary statement. Right now, this incident has actually been passed on to the separate investigatory mechanism of the force, the same mechanism that actually investigated the WCK bombings. So it's right now in the hands of the same people that investigated that. I think that investigation opened 2 days ago. And They took 5 days, I think, last time, wasn't it? It was about 5 days for them to come up with their final findings. So there's one survivor from this convoy of 15 people. The IDF story about this van here, and it's reported by, this is Manny Fabian, who was from he's the Times of Israel military correspondent. So their story is that they had set up an ambush along this road from the Golani Brigade, 14th Armored Brigade. They set up the ambush at about 4, it's AM, it's not PM. They set up the ambush in the next sort of half an hour, a bunch of ambulances and civilians, they pass by this ambush and nothing happens. That's their story. At 4:30, this, which is apparently a Hamas police vehicle, this one here, comes through the area. They exchange fire with the Golani soldiers. They kill one, and the IDF kills one of them and captures 2 others. And then that vehicle remains on the side of the road. Yeah, the flub is PM. It's not AM. Yeah. No, yeah, it is AM, but he said PM. Yeah. So that's supposedly the Hamas police vehicle that returned fire on the Golani soldiers. No, Golani Brigade is just a brigade in the IDF. That's what they are. Okay. Then it's 6 AM, so an hour and a half after this vehicle swerves off the road, this is when the convoy comes. So you can see it's pretty dark. It's like almost sunrise, but 6 AM, the convoy of ambulances arrived in the area and the soldiers opened fire thinking they were a threat. Drone operators flying a UAV overhead had reported to Golani soldiers that the vehicles were moving toward them in a suspicious manner. The initial investigation claims that the soldiers were surprised by the convoy stopping on the road next to the abandoned Hamas vehicle, and several suspects getting out quickly and running. The soldiers were unaware that the suspects were in fact unarmed medics. Now, again, the soldiers don't really have much of an excuse for this because they seem to have lied about the sirens, and the medics are in high vis. The IDF acknowledges that its statement claiming that the ambulances had their lights off was incorrect and was based on the testimony from soldiers in the incident. Video footage published by the New York Times today showed that the ambulances were clearly identifiable and had their lights on. The investigation is looking into this discrepancy. The IDF has also found that at least 6 of the 15 slain medics were immediately identified by intelligence officials as Hamas operatives. So they initially said 9, but this is since like a preliminary investigation where they said there were 6. The reason that that's 6, I don't know if it's been responded to yet. My guess is that the 6 is coming from not the Red Crescent vehicle, but from the other one. Red Crescent. What's the Red Crescent vehicle, the other one that was with them? There's the other institution that was with them. It wasn't just Red Crescent, it was also, does anyone know? The one that's actually government affiliated? What are they called? The emergency services, like the firefighters. Not the UN. Civil services, is that what they're called? Civil defense. Civil defense, I believe, is either affiliated with Hamas or they're just like an arm of the government. But I don't know if civil defense actually integrates with the soldiers at all. The police does, but I don't know if civil defense does. In any case, according to the initial probe, the shooting did not take place at a close range and the troops did not carry out any executions. After the deadly gunfire, a deputy battalion commander in Golani with his troops collected the bodies into one spot, covered them with sand, and marked the burial spot. The military says burying bodies is an approved and regular practice during the fighting in Gaza to prevent wild dogs and other animals from eating the corpses. The IDF then notified the UN of the burial spot for them to come collect them. The following day, the UN was unable to find the location, and the forces were meanwhile busy with another task. The UN was then called to return several days later to collect the bodies, and eventually they were recovered in coordination with the IDF. So they eventually find the bodies, and then this is where the stories come in. So the summary is that Hamas made an ambush in the IDF. No, no. The story here is that the IDF had this ambush set up on this area. They apparently allowed medics and other vehicles to go through, but then half an hour after the ambush was set up, this vehicle here that we're still trying to figure out, we don't really know much about this one, was supposedly a Hamas vehicle. They pulled over, returned fire on the ambush, and 1 died and 2 were captured. An hour and a half later, this medical convoy comes with their lights on, in their high vis, supposedly responding to a call about this. Maybe someone saw this and called that there might be people lying down or injured or killed. So they respond to this, they come out, and they get fired on for 5 minutes with the lights on and the high vis, and then they're buried. So, I mean, given the fact that if it's the soldiers who actually lied about the lights, that just sounds like they just committed a massacre. Like they just murdered aid workers for no reason. That's like the best explanation so far incidentally, based on the IDF's probe. Because if the IDF's probe is saying that the soldiers lied to them about the vehicles, first moving suspiciously, then not having their lights on, if that's actually true that the soldiers said that to the IDF, and the IDF isn't just trying to cover for them, then it means the soldiers were just lying to cover up what they did, because they knew what they did was not good, you would say. Even if they positively identified 6 Hamas members among the medics, even that wouldn't make sense in this context, because the soldiers who were firing on them wouldn't have been identifying them. And the soldiers who were firing on them also, their reason for suspecting these guys turned out not to be true. So even if it was 6 Hamas members among these 15, how did the people who fired on them actually know that at the time? How do they know that? Because there's no evidence that they were fired back upon, despite what some people are trying to say. And there's also no evidence that their movements were suspicious. So the only hole there might be is if these guys were supposed to communicate with the IDF before responding to this scene. But even then, that's like a huge window of doubt. So even if they got lucky and killed 6 Hamas guys along with, I guess, 9 other medics, then that's just like, okay, you still... When we talk about war crimes or criminal activity in general, the criminal justice system bases its decisions on the state of mind of the killer. That's what we do, right? So if, for example, someone bombs a family home, but it's done because of false but credible enough intel that that family home was a military base because of like a misidentification or a bad informant or something like that, or there's like a sudden move at the end, that might not be criminal, because you would just, if they could prove that they had good enough information at the time that would normally warrant a strike, then it would be an accident. However, if the opposite, if you kill like 10 people who are responding to a crime scene, like who are in medical gear, responding to a call, and it turns out that even all 10 of them were actually Hamas fighters who were just unarmed and multitasking as medical workers, then you've committed a crime, because your state of mind is what matters. Your intent and the information that you had when you made the decision is what matters. So if these guys made the decision based on the fact that these guys were irregularly moving and also had sirens on, then it's like, but apparently they didn't. So that would still be criminal, even if everyone they killed was Hamas. You understand? Because it's based on how much information you're using and responding to at the time. So it's very unlikely there's any like way out of this. But people are trying to find them. Let's have a look. Why did they bury the ambulances, though? I have no idea. I have no idea if that's protocol. I have no idea. My first thought would be they're trying to hide something. But then why did they tell the UN where they were? Like, why? This is a Fox News person. The IDF has also claimed without evidence that 9 Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorists were in the vehicles. In the course of our reporting, we have pressed for any hard evidence to support that additional claim. None have been provided. This is an old one because the 9 number has been dropped. They've said 6 now. Yeah, people trying to... This guy, remember him, Adin? He used to come into this Discord every now and then to debate. He has decided that at 11 seconds, there is an armed terrorist. Look at that. Now, if anyone remembers the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, a grainy image that looks like it could have a small chance of being a weapon pointed in the wrong way, as what happened with the Rittenhouse trial, this is not going to pass, okay? Especially if you look at 11 seconds and then go to 12 seconds. If you watch this guy's movements here, look at that, free hand. Free hand. Where's the gun? He's actually found that in this video. 11 seconds. It's a shadow. It's not a gun. It's not a rifle. It's nothing. It's nothing. Unless he's a professional boxer and his fists are lethal weapons. And he's about to chop one of his hands off and launch it at the Golani Brigade. Bro, this guy's on some shit. Holy. Oh, this is wrong as well. Clearly, the IDF didn't lie. Here's the ambulance without headlights or emergency signals. That's not. They said the convoy was moving. This is a police vehicle. This isn't an ambulance. This is not the one that. This one is actually the one that might have been justified to fire on because it was a Hamas vehicle. We're talking about the emergency responders who got fired on. This fight was done like an hour and a half before this one, before the people with the sirens came. And what else do we have? Many of the dead were reported as members of the civil defense, which is completely affiliated with Hamas. I'm guessing this is what, civil defense, people hanging out with Hamas dudes. Is that them there, civil defense? Again, this would suggest that they might have, I don't know, I've never heard of civil defense having overlap with the Al-Qassam brigades. The police does a lot, but not the, I don't know about the civil defense. Because again, Hamas is it's a government. It's the government. It's not just, they employ people, yeah. If they employ firefighters, it doesn't turn the firefighters into soldiers. So yeah, this guy's completely off his rocker right now. This guy is absolutely crackers. Like, what the... oh no, there's another one as well. There's a whole thread here. It's so funny that you always have this kind of like that people who have foregone conclusions, like they always use similar methods. So you'll probably recognize this method. Okay, you will recognize this method because what this person has done, this Cheryl wrote it person, has decided to analyze the sounds of the gunshots based on other videos. Is that familiar? Does that remind you of anyone? I'll just go, see, she's got all these videos of different gunshots being fired. What my analysis has found is you'll hear all three distinct sounds of three different rifles. You'll hear a clear difference between rifle fire from rifles with and without suppressors. You will clearly hear gunfire both originating close to the phone going away from the phone, as well as gunfire from a distance coming towards the phone. This is important that it shows that there's a shootout between two sets of armed forces, IDF and armed terrorists. Again, a few problems here. Main one is that the phone is moving, okay? When a phone moves, and you can try this, play a song on your phone and do that next to your ear, okay? Or even do that and move it in a circle. The pitch will change if you do that. It'll change the pitch and it'll change the, like you can actually, if you do this well enough, you can play music on a phone and move it away from your ear and back and forth in a way that makes it sound like a flanger effect, like a, like it'll do that because movement affects pitch. Okay. Second, a phone microphone is not picking up all that much information. It's only picking up a very tight set of frequencies and moving and emitting the rest because you only need like something around like 800 or 1K hertz to 3 or 4K to identify a voice. Whereas a lot of like lower frequencies and higher ones are gone. So no. That's not how you do any of that. Distance matters as well. And this response is absolutely amazing. Exceptional analysis, Cheryl. As a few points. As you point out, there are clearly the sound signatures of multiple firearms, many of them unsuppressed, with a signature similar to those used by Hamas, AK-47, M4, AR-15. The person on the phone is saying over and over again, Allahu Akbar, the battle cry of jihadists, not something a medic getting ambushed would say on the phone. Oh my God, bro. This is the kind of sentence that will be used as an inspirational pep talk before the next Shaheed mission, before the next suicide bomber. If a suicide bomber in the West Bank is ever having cold feet, all they need to do is show them this tweet and be like, look, this is the world you live in. You really want this? You want this life? And they'll be like, yeah, you're right. So not good. Not good at all. Just looks like the IDF committed a massacre. That just of aid workers. That's it. That's it. Looks like this Golani brigade, this unit, just ambushed a bunch of aid workers and then lied about what information they had at the time to make the decision. That's it. Done. We'll see what the investigation says. I really hope someone gets punished for it, but, you know, not holding my breath. Wasn't it claimed that 6 out of the 14 members were Hamas is not true? We don't know if it's true, but it doesn't actually, at this rate, unless the investigation shows something more substantial, it doesn't matter if that's true, because they didn't say that they had a reason. Their reasons for describing this aid convoy as irregular or suspicious are not substantiated. They said it was moving in an irregular or suspicious manner and didn't have their lights on. That's why they fired on it, okay? But why would you say that if that's your reason? But then the video shows that it's not doing either of those things. Now, I think one of the points of the initial report from the IDF is that a drone operator apparently described them as irregular movements and suspicious vehicles with their lights off. I think it was a drone operator told the Golani Brigade, the soldiers in the ambush, that's what they were expecting to see. But even then, the soldiers would have clearly seen the lights on and thought, wait, I thought you said these were vehicles that were unidentified and suspicious. Like, these are aid workers. You would have a moment of doubt because the intel that you've just been provided has been proven wrong, like right in front of your face. Anyway, there's not really much else to it. I don't know. Just following orders, I guess. Okay. What is this story? Oh yeah, people have spoken about this for a while, but I didn't think this was actually anything. Are we concluding? The only... I don't know. Yeah, I think I'm concluding, yeah. We can see if the investigation turns out anything new that shows that what they did was, like, they had a reason to do it, then maybe, but I just don't know what that would be. Hundreds of names removed from official Gaza war death list. This story I thought was, like, dealt with a long time ago. It was about 3,000. It wasn't hundreds, but okay. If they say thousands, people might expect. This was because at some period, the Gaza media office, the government media office, which is separate from the health ministry, was adding a bunch of dubious deaths that didn't have enough confirmation onto the list. But I thought the health ministry walked back on that quite quickly. Like, they took that away and just went with their own data. But let's see. The names have been removed pending further investigation. Experts tell Sky News there's no deliberate sign of manipulation. Yeah, I thought this was the case. I didn't think there was deliberate manipulation. It was 1,800. I thought it was 3,000. Then it was 2,000. Now it's 1,800. Okay. But this is the current list, which is still 50,600. It just means that they took off ones that were in a past list. They don't distinguish between civilians and combatants. Almost all of the names removed had initially been submitted through an online form, which allows families to record the deaths of loved ones where the body is missing. Removed as a precautionary measure pending an investigation into each one. We realize a lot of people died a natural death. Maybe they were near an explosion and they had a heart attack, or houses caused them pneumonia. Living in destroyed houses caused them pneumonia and hypothermia. All these cases we don't attribute to the war, or like indirect deaths. Okay. It is the largest removal of names since the war began. Comes after 1,400 names were removed between August and October, half of them originating in hospital morgue records rather than the online form. Doesn't look like manipulation. Yeah, this wouldn't look like manipulation at all. Doesn't change the distribution. Men, women, children. Ish, how many deaths are Hamas? We have no idea. We have no idea. Yeah, this is a nothing story. Yeah. Just joined the live stream. What lie did the IDF make? Oh, well, they either made it themselves or they passed it on from soldiers, which I guess are still IDF. It was they lied about the vehicles moving suspiciously with their lights off. Whereas the suspicious movement is apparently them driving down the road and stopping at the site where there are bodies, which you'd expect medics to do with their lights on in high-vis gear. So I'm not sure which part of that is supposed to be suspicious. Maybe like 2 minutes before the camera started filming, they were doing skids. They were doing little 180s and 360s, doing parkour. I don't know. Ugh. But yeah, the death list it's a nothing story. It's like when, oh God, it was like when earlier in the war when I think something like 25% or 30% of the names were marked as incomplete, like incomplete information. But then people thought that was signs of inflation. But if you looked at it, you just found that incomplete just meant like they were missing like one number, or they didn't have the date of birth, or there was a birth certificate missing, like something like that. It was nothing. It wasn't proof that they were made up. It was just that all the information about a person, like one entry was missing. But people try to have it both ways, you know? They try to say, well, on the one hand, Hamas surrounds themselves with civilians and doesn't let people leave, or tells people not to leave when there are evacuation orders, or they use civilian buildings and the tunnels and everything. But then also all these like civilian casualties of like women and children are fake. It's like, which one do you want? Did Lorna Box go to school? Yeah. Was it the University of Life? Yeah. Yeah. The school of getting the shit kicked out of me by 16-year-old drug dealers. Okay. The Ghetto University is exactly where I'm from. Yeah. Dwayne, thanks for the $5. Give $5. Michael Grant, thanks for the $1.99. Crap, what did the IDF lie about? Okay, I just said. They lied about the vehicles with the lights on, and also about 9 Hamas fires, and about suspicious movements, apparently. It looks like anti-Hamas protests are still ongoing. Looks like they're still ongoing. This was Jabalia yesterday, I believe. This is a lot of people. I don't know what this is. It's a lot of people, isn't it? Well, I know this means here, like here, Hamas are terrorists is basically what that says. The here is just kind of used for rhyming. It's not really that. Yeah. That sounds like they're shitting on Hamdan, who is one of the top Hamas officials. Flute salad. They're calling Hamas terrorist and Hamdan a spy. Oh, a spy. That's a good reverse Uno, isn't it? Like, you call us traitors, you're actually Israeli. Oh god, they should just call Hamas Israeli. Why don't they do that? Plot twist. Where's the overhead view of the Hamas hostage ceremony? Anyone know where that is? The one that was actually quite small. Yeah, like remember this stuff.
Now
where's the image? Yeah, if you remember this, the Hamas hostage ceremony, and they from the vantage point, yeah. And they moved the cameras around, obviously, to make it look like the crowds were bigger, but they were actually kind of like like, look at this. You compare this, which is organized by Hamas, organized by the people with the government power and everything, and you get that compared to. I'm just saying, you know, if we're going Donald Trump crowd sizes, okay. Whereas at least here you can get a little bit of perspective on the depth of the crowd as well. I don't know, it seems like they don't like them. Seems like they don't like Hamas. Apparently the Hamas rocket fire recently has actually been more intense than it's been for months, but don't suppose it's done much. Why is there so little footage? Because a lot of the journalists in Gaza who have ties to places like Al Jazeera, etc., don't want to report on that. Like the ones that have access to the bigger companies. Mainstream media is talking about it though. Like AP are talking about it, Reuters are talking about it, New York Times, BBC, like they're all talking about it.